Hello, everybody. I hope you got your explorer hats on. I sure do. I ran across some just general insanity, and I wanted to share this. Well, I don't normally dive into maps, but I've been seeing a few different trends lately, and I wanted to kind of like get a 10,000 foot view on things, and like literally speaking. And let's start with what I've been up to lately, and I've been talking about UFOs a lot. Part of that is because it's on everybody's radar. It's a big topic. We just had a bunch of data drop about possible fragments, vehicles, things held by the government. This isn't news to people like me, but it might be news that it is definitely news that it's being revealed. For some reason, I got sucked into the Skinwalker Ranch universe, and it's super interesting. A little hokey, it's a little overdone, of course, but there is some interesting stuff there. There's a lot happening there. I've watched it at length and seen some of the explanations, and some of the science they're doing there is very, very interesting. Just the mapping that they're doing of the magnetic anomalies in the air, on the ground, interesting geospatial anomalies, photogrammetry that's coming back with strange columns and anomalies in the air, things happening to their helicopters, their drones, rockets that they're sending up there, and there's just a ton of history there. You should definitely look into it and just keep an open mind. The most interesting thing is the magnetic aspect, and so in the UFO field, like a lot of people talk about hotspots and this kind of thing, areas. I feel like just generally you can look up, and with the right people, the right vibration, and an open mind, you can see things, you can encourage things, you can use flashlights and lasers and these kinds of things, to some interesting degrees. But some of these places are just like, it's happening all the time. People are experiencing these things all the time, sometimes over a wide area. And some of these areas are very well known for interesting effects. And, there's a lot of debate over, is this legit ET? Is this some sort of strange quantum physical or physical anomaly that we don't fully understand yet? Wormholes, this kind of thing. I think I might go with some sort of like all of the above approach. It could be some combination of things going on here where, interestingly enough, there are some places that seem to like magnify the natural magnetism, the natural energies of the land, let's say, in an interesting way. There's formations that we know of in science that we can use for satellite dishes, lenses, these kinds of things that focus energy. We know this, and this is electromagnetic energy, light, radio waves, this kind of thing. And, well, let me just show you. The guys at Skinwalker started to work up a model of the valley that they're a part of there, the small valley and the larger valley, and it's just really interesting how it works out. Let me bring this up without further ado. It just so happens that they are in the middle of this valley here that they've mapped, with high-tech data, and it's in this kind of shape that kind of seems like a big dish, like a satellite dish. And it's just a little bit like an eye. Now this comes up again. It's very interesting. And now you pull out. So here's the ranch, UFO Valley. I'm sure somebody's capitalizing on this. There's the ranch, and it is right smack dab in the middle of this giant lenticular valley with extreme erosion on all sides. Like, something big happened here, and I don't know what. Like, sorry about my ignorance. If there's geologists that know what happened here, let me know in the comments and replies. This is the kind of thing that seems... Well, here we have, like, just extreme erosion. This is the kind of, like, stuff you see in the scablands in Washington here, where Randall Carlson has been doing a lot of work tracking these gigantic events with cataclysmic effects, possibly related to an extraterrestrial impact. Now, we don't know where that impact happened, right? But some people think it might have been an airburst. There's just a ton of evidence around a certain time at the end of the Younger Dryas, 11,800 years or so. And I really didn't want to start talking about this particular thing. It's another weird thing. And this just sort of looks like an impact crater. Forgive me. It looks like something came in right along here and kind of ended here, maybe. And there just so happens to be a lake here. Now, the weirdest thing is this is Salt Lake City, I believe. This is Utah Lake. This is at the end of this. There's a rather large lake here. It just seems like something came in, maybe even splashed a couple of times. Again, forgive me. However, the point I was trying to make before I distracted myself is that right smack dab in the middle of this gigantic eye-shaped basin is this place that has these very strange anomalies. Now, we know that there's radiation and electromagnetism coming from space. Our planet's constantly being bombarded by cosmic rays, microwaves, gamma, all frequencies, right? These folks were reading just huge fluctuations and extremely high peaks of radiation across all parts of the spectrum, really. Very strange stuff that humans ourselves can't induce a spike on all bands. And that's just very bizarre. Other things going on, like the phones getting hacked, passwords being broken, apps being opened, very strange things. A lot of errors having to do with computers and stuff. One of the strangest things I found, and especially stuck out given my background, was the fact that to start the work, it was believed that this place is cursed. There's all this stuff about witches and old stories of shapeshifters and things. That's where the name comes from. So they got a hold of a Ute elder to come and bless the land and open it up and make sure that it was okay. And he does a ceremony and he listens. And he does this thing and he says afterwards something interesting. He says, so if your technology starts to malfunction and you get this crazy stuff happening, that's your sign to beware, and that's something maybe you shouldn't touch or shouldn't punch. Leave that alone, maybe. And so, of course, them being scientists and being super duper blanco, they shoot rockets right into the damn thing, and just run around and raise all Cain. and it's a very interesting thing. There's a history there with Robert Bigelow researched there, did a bunch of research there. He's been super into UFOs. There's a lot of dispute around it. They apparently the government was interested enough in what was happening there, though, that they overtook the investigation and it went quote unquote public, and then a lot of it went classified. It hasn't been released since. So at any rate, they measured this land, and it had these rays kind of converging at the center, almost as if, like a satellite dish. That would make sense, just from the perspective of, cosmic rays bombarding this basin and being reflected toward the middle, right? So you have that aspect. This is the space energy aspect. And then you have the earth energy aspect, where, you have radiant lines of field force that are coming out of the earth at all times, and those are, go back to Faraday, like a conductor is going to bear the nature, some of the nature and geometry of its, or the field conducted is going to bear some of the nature and geometry of the conductor, right? So you have ripples in the conductor, you're going to have ripples in the field, and it's quite possible that the intersection of these rays of magnetic force, as they're coming out of the land here, if you have an even distribution, let's say, of just, obviously the surface of the earth is uneven. That's why there's variation in the magnetism, and that's why possibly some of these places exist. But let's say it comes out evenly if it was completely flat. Now, where it's angled into one area, you can imagine that these rays, and magnetism works a little bit more like tentacles. You've seen the pictures of, the corona on the sun. Those follow along magnetic lines, right? And very much along the lines of the merkaba, that toric energy field that sets up a merkaba around it that is very specific geometry, right? And we're going to see like geometry plays into this. Earth, what some people call the Earth grid ley lines and stuff might play into this somewhat too. But either way, just in this location, there's something very, very strange happening. Measurably, and this whole area is very, very prone to UFO sightings and a lot of weird stuff. It's like, the foundational center of the Mormon religion over here at the left part of this, right about where could have been an extraterrestrial impact. It's just, not saying Mormons are aliens or anything. I actually read that book. It's very strange. It reads a little bit like sci-fi. Not saying anything other than that, but it's all very weird how it moves together. Now, that led me to another place. With this tech, I wanted to have an excuse to look at that I've always really wanted to look at, because of some other interest related to extraterrestrial impacts, giant tidal waves, not just at 11,800 BC at the end of the Younger Dryas, but also these other ones that may have occurred on the other, like in Indonesia, possibly 6,000 years ago. Some people are talking about this Burkle hypothesis, which, interestingly enough, sort of falls along some of the lines of, epochal age shifts for humans. So I wanted to look at Lake Titicaca. Don't laugh. It's a real name. But the fact of the matter is, it happens that this is another hotspot, not just of UFOs, but of like really weird stuff. Right here, do you see this lenticular eye shape again? Now, I wanted to mention something. Like, I'm a farmer and I work a lot with potatoes, and I'm always cutting off the eyes of my potatoes because these are the genetic information energy nexus nodes, call it, on the surface of the potato, where you can take that and plant it. It becomes a new potato. So everybody's seen eyes on the surface of a potato. I'm not saying the Earth is a big potato, but is it? Okay, Brendan's really lost at Earth is a potato. I'm done. Switching off. No, but there's not a lot of people might know that the research of Dr. Chandra Bose in the early 20th century, I think a contemporary of Einstein or Tesla and a few others, Einstein, and he did a lot of work on. Well, a lot of botanists and a lot of scientists work on the categorization of things like separation, taxonomy. Most botany is like discovering these differences, some of the commonalities, but a lot of the differences. This guy would take like slabs of carrot and expose them to the microscope and dye them and tweak them and expose them to shocks, cold, freezing, heat, all these different things, energies. And he would see about the commonalities between things, like how metal was the same in some ways as tree bark, as in the same ways as human skin, and how these functional layers and functional packages, the membranes of things, the walls of things, the skins of things, the brains of things, interacted in similar ways, and did a lot of research on this, so there's always been something there in the back of my mind, looking at everything of seeing the commonalities between things. So there's a lot of people that think of Earth as one giant organism. There's plenty of different religions and spiritual groups, and definitely all the indigenous cultures across the Earth that regard Mother Earth, as a living being, and so that's nothing new, and nothing to scoff at. So that, considering all things considered, maybe the Earth has eyes, like not necessarily the ones we see from, but maybe more like a potato. At any rate, there's these places where it seems like, whether because of perturbations, because of impacts, volcanoes, different things happening, there's fissures and interesting shapes that so happen to coincide with shapes that we know of in our own technology that have certain effects, one of which is the focusing of energy by a lens like shape, and it doesn't have to be circular to be a lens, right? Like or a reflecting dish. Like there's plenty of satellite dishes that are configured as a oval shape or a rectangular shape, radar dishes that are shaped like this. The newfangled shape of the replacement antenna for the Millennium Falcon and the new Star Wars, etc. All of these things. But right here is a very interesting place, Tiwanaku. This is where you find this plaza to the gods. This is where you find the Pumapunku and stuff like this. These blocks, these insane blocks. I'll do a search so you can just see. It'll bring up a picture of these blocks that are perfectly engineered to the point where people studying these are within like laser precision. Weirdly enough, they use some measurements that are very close to the meter. And other such things. So we'll look up Tiwanaku and this ruin. These blocks are just insane. And I'm not even going to ancient aliens here. It seems like there's a lot of things happening. These are these are focal points where people are doing, science and coming to understandings, possibly in conjunction. Puerta del Sol. These are all ancient ruins, and these are perfectly engineered stone ruins that we've found. There's also allegedly ruins in the lake, which has seahorses. By the way, it's the only, and it's at the top of a mountain, go figure. And a lot of people have a lot of theories about this. And I think a lot about this. But yeah, that's these. And it's right smack dab in the pupil of the eye, practically, of this lens of possibly energy. And I probably don't even need to tell you this is a hotspot for UFO activity. Very close to here. This, you have the Paracas culture with the cone-headed people that Brian Foerster will assert do not have. We're not modified in any way. We're not cradle boarded to be that way. They have natural growth lines on their skull. And a lot of mummies. There's mummies around here. There's pyramids around here. There's the Nazca Lines very close to here. Nazca's right up here somewhere. And this is, no, bear with me, because there's a lot of coincidence. There's a lot of synchronicity. I don't give too much credence to synchronicity here. We just have a lot of really interesting coincidence bordering on other stuff. So the reason I came to look at Tiwanaku was not to see if there was this lens shape. That was, I wondered, but that was a genuine surprise, right? The reason I came is because of the seahorses. And the reason why I'm curious about the seahorses is because of this story about possible impact in Indonesia 6,000 years ago. One of the ways you can look, well, in the Indonesian earthquake a little while ago, there was tidal wave activity that made it to here, that made it to the Cape down here at the bottom, I believe, and a few other places along Peru at the time, right? Plus, this is an area that's frequented by earthquakes and so on. But we're talking about events from afar. Here you have this absolutely insane evidence of some massive, it seems like, wave. You know, I'm glad to talk to anybody about this if they want to, but there's this, all of these, you know, you have a ridge of mountains over here, you have a ridge of mountains over here, and in the middle you have this central valley, sort of like in California, but, and very similar to California, there's a marine layer comes in here. This is very dry in here. This is one of the driest places on Earth, actually. And these massive ravines, again, all these scabbing, very similar to the Washington scablands. Also, the basin around this other place where we just visited, the Skinwalker Ranch, the basin there in Utah. And also here we have dotted along the tops of the hills, very pronounced. This is not snow and stuff. These seem like deposits. We have all these interestingly colored, seemingly almost like salty deposits, and they're in these chevron formations that are deposited right here, for example, that seem indicative of tidal wave deposits. How big must a wave be that could do all of? Look at this. This is completely scoured, completely just thrashed. Now, look, it goes over, you know, it goes up here, right? And then there's some deposits here along the top. There's even, check this out, a little bit of what do we know? There's a giant fissure here that goes through and across the mountain as if to drain into the lake. That's a little bit salty and has seahorses and or ancient ruins. It's just also weird. Also weird, folks. So I'm looking at this, and I'm looking for the lines of Nazca, because I'm looking at some other stuff. I don't need to zoom in on that. But I noticed some other weird stuff. So I look for these little tiny lines. And I find this. What is this? These. What is this? What are these? Now, this might be something completely normal. This might have to do with plate movements. I've studied plate movements. I've taken geology classes and stuff. Nothing prepares me for this. I don't know what this is. This is not really... Are these like fracture lines from plate activity? Why are they so straight across huge portions of the Earth's surface underwater? Now, I don't know if we've always had the ability to see this. I know that this is data that's been recently picked up. I wonder if this is some sort of artifact. Maybe, I'm going through all the things in my head. I want to disprove everything. Are these some sort of artifact from the way that Google combines things? But there's some very straight lines here. There's even pronounced ridges that are obviously not artifacts. But these run in seems to be straight lines that seem to converge in certain locations, okay? So I think these are actual features, but I don't know why. Like some of these are volcanic areas, okay? Somebody explain to me why and how it is that there's perfect rays scoured along the ocean's floor from just simply from volcanic activity. And this is a rectangle. That's a rectangle and a trapezoid. What's going on here? Now, I can get some of these things. Like, is this that just the primitive software that we have going along with these radar kits? This is really interesting. This is like a ocean crevice, a trench here. But why are the lines so... Now, geologists would tell you there's a lot of rocks, that break like this, crystal breaks like this. This is sort of a thing called crystal habit, right? Certain rocks break like this. But why? Nobody ever sat here and told me that the Earth was essentially like a giant crystal. Why are these lines so straight the way that they break? Why is this happening? And if nothing else, like this is showing how crystalline in nature this planet is, unless this is something else. But it gets weirder. Okay. Like I said, some of these lines cross at certain Hangaroa. I think is this the name of Easter Island? No, that's Rapa Nui. Town on Easter Island, Chile. Right, so that's Easter Island. These things cross at Easter Island. These cross at Hawaii. And some people have been talking about, like, why is DOD approving release of all this stuff, like about the things they have possibly in lockup? Why about the UFOs? Why about this? Why about this? It's possible. I mean, one of the theories that was thrown out there that I've heard recently is simply on Project Unity. Shout out to on this, but was talking about how it's possible that with the AI and just the big data available and all of this transparency of these systems available, it's just like the number of people looking at these things, the number of people that are looking at the maps that are available now, at the historical archives that are available now, and just at the transparency of it all. And it's just going to be harder and harder to hide things. And so they might just be like trying to get ahead of it. I'm not saying what exactly, but what the beep is why. Now that's not all, folks. That's not all. Some of these are very grid-like, and they line up in certain areas that are very strange, okay? If somebody is on this sonar, and this is an artifact. This is all artifacts from the way that it scans the ocean floor. Forgive me and correct me where I'm wrong, but these combine, and this place where they combine seems to be a ridge of sorts that is like a perfect right angle upper, like L shape. Like it's basically an L rotated and flipped upside down. Like that's what this is. It's surrounded by, like, it seems like these are seamounts or ancient volcanoes or something. It's some sort of activity here, but what is this? You know, like we have, you know, the LIGOs. We have some sort of massive interferometers, things we do massive science with to combine lasers. That's not like lasers straight, but what some geologists explained to me why this is happening. Okay. So we have two different areas that have this lenticular pattern. I didn't want to get, like, I had to go here though and look at some of this. This is just freaking weird, right? I don't know what's going on. Some of this matches up here. So another area where there's a lot of UFO sightings, and this is with the, I'm not sure if there's, I don't know where, I have to look up where the Nimitz was, but this is where another one of those, the Navy ship sightings, where the UFOs were, like, quote unquote dropping out of the sky. This is Guadalupe Island. Now this is a well-known geological magnetic anomaly. So much so that the sharks, this is the best place in the world to see great white sharks, not just because the water is so clear, but they all, like, congregate here. There's huge amounts of fish that congregate here because of the geomagnetic anomalies here. In fact, like, it was on Unidentified on this show where guys, Luis Elizondo, Chris Mellon, and these guys went here to look into this, where they researched and they talked to fishermen, and basically all the fishermen, this place is like, normally UFOs, you don't talk about UFOs because, hey, that's crazy. People might think you're crazy. Here, they just talk about it because the fishermen have all seen something. Even the guy that researches the sharks that they went to talk to about the possible reasons why people could be seeing these that are like traditional explanations, conventional explanations, saw something. Saw a very bright spherical object emerge near, like, a rock next to the ocean and just take off, blink out. And he thought he hallucinated, but his captain saw the same exact thing. So this, again, is just a very pronounced, like, not as pronounced, but there's this right angle here with the island right at the... So, again, with these fissures and cracks and different warps in the skin of, call it the skin of the conductor. Oh, and also look, whoa, oh my gosh, I didn't see this before. We have an eye. And it looks, I mean, these sort of things like look a little bit like a vagina. I'm sure there's all these, you know, a geologist can look at these and say, this is this, that's that, and just explain these things. Yes. But looking at the commonalities between these structures and other structures that exist in nature and imagining the possible functions that they could have, or resulting anomalies that could occur, you know, where you have packed multidimensional energies, multi-frequency energies that are being reflected by the Earth's surface. Is it possible that these are areas where, like, as they say, the veils are thinner? You have maybe not wormholes per se, but, well, and again, we've never seen a wormhole exactly, and they say this. I don't disbelieve ETs either. Like, if I was an extraterrestrial visiting the surface of this planet, or I had some sort of exotic propulsion system or something, there might be some reason why these places are interesting or just attractive, or maybe part of the navigational system. All these people have a lot of people in this field have thrown this stuff out there. Now it's all coming back around again because of all this new work that's being done. But it could be a little bit of everything soup here, like the portals opening, and some of these objects themselves could be wormholes. Like, there's nothing to say that when we encounter a wormhole in nature, as Einstein predicted, that it behaves how we would predict. And for something that we've never actually seen, how would we know how that's going to behave? What if there's some intelligence there? Like, we know at all levels, we've looked at this reality, at this biology of this plane of existence in 3 dimensions, and determined that there is life, that there is intelligence. How is it how hubristic that at a higher dimensional level of reality, or a finer level of reality, that it would somehow be less intelligent, like just a static portal, and for multi-dimensional object or higher dimensional objects, 4-dimensional object, lots of videos exist where people go through that. The imposition of a 4-dimensional object in this 3D space-time would be a sphere that changes size and suddenly appears and suddenly disappears. There's all these different spheres of all sorts of different sizes being seen across all these places. Coincidence? Some of the weird stuff with the cattle mutilations and things that like happen at Skinwalker, all these places. Consider the possibility of maybe not an experiment happening per se, but like if there are strange, space-time fissures opening up and wormholes in other parts of reality, vacuum of space, for example, like what would that look like? Like, that would look like parts of an animal just suddenly disappearing, or like as something just grazed by, maybe it's just not there. And that's exactly what they've just, like, clean laser light cuts, parts like just missing with no incisions, all these things like happenings. People ascribe to possibly malice, possibly this literal experimentation taking place. Not that there's not some intelligence happening there, but what if we're witnessing some sort of like natural phenomenon we just don't fully understand yet? And that's not to say that it's not intelligent, because I'm a panpsychist, and I believe that like the reality is saturated, absolutely saturated with intelligence, and in fact is itself intelligent. But here, just to get back to it, here at Guadalupe, there's a whole lot of shit going on. And again, you have this eye shape kind of with a little bit of a teardrop shape, and then again another very pronounced eye shape here. You got these potato eyes happening. So another very weird thing, and one more. So I wanted to go check out New Mexico. A lot of weird stuff happening there. So I'm looking over New Mexico, and I've been to Roswell. It wasn't that special. Really, it wasn't like I saw the museum. Sorry, tourist industry of Roswell. You got a good thing going there, but maybe put some nicer motels. So I'm looking, and I find another eye-like thing. And what do you know? It is White Sands Missile Range. This is basically where they built the atomic bomb. There's a metric F-ton of UFO activity around here, in addition to everything that's claimed about possible testing here. And this is I don't know about the geomagnetic anomalies here, but if there is, and again, here's this Scablands activity. This is, again, some very big things happened here. This could be impact territory. Wouldn't it be the weirdest thing if there's this phenomenon that occurs, like the Earth gets impacted by some major object, which itself brings a whole bunch, like a nugget of electromagnetic weirdness to the surface, right? In addition to all of the iridium and everything else that gets blown out all over the place in every direction, alters the surface so that, again, the conductor changes, and so the field changes, and then you have refraction, and then all of these things seem to work together like a runaway freight train. I'm just spitballing here, but this is the hypothesis. What an eyeball, hey? What do you know, right? This is some freaky stuff. And Alamogordo, these are all famous names to the UFO community. Okay. So, again, some strangeness. One site, and if we're going to talk about eyes on this journey, we got to look at one particular place that I know of that's one famous eye here, and that is the Eye of the Sahara, which is also known as the Richat structure, which is this freaky deaky thing right here. Some people think maybe the actual location of Atlantis. Oh, what do you know? There's another little mini Richat right there. I'd never noticed that. This is actually a extinct magma dome, right? That's slowly like uplifting this part of Africa, possibly. Now look at this. This is again in the middle of an eye. Now this is Mauritania. This is no man's land. There's pirates and thieves and all sorts of stuff going on out here. But this is obviously another eye structure. Be curious to look into what the locals see around here. Am I right? Now, so the reason people think this may be a location for Atlantis is it has this obvious, again, flooding, this huge flooding. Some people say that this is wind, and they may be right to a degree. However, wind can't account for all of this. There's some pronounced flooding here that looks to, fall along similar lines as channels that are not just wind driven. And I'm not an expert in all of that, but this whole area, this giant area, looks like it was hit by one big massive flood. There is evidence about another possible impact site somewhere up here, up near Italy, but we won't go in there today. At any rate, oh, what do you know? Eyes within eyes within eyes. There's a larger eye here, and I don't know about all this yet, but this is, people will say this is not significant, although it's large enough that people, they gauge whether or not the ISS gauges sometimes whether or not they're above Africa by looking at it. It's a well-known landmark from space. Other reasons why Atlantis is it fits a lot of other descriptions. Look at the Channel Bright Insight if you really want the full breadth of that theory, which is not entirely a lot of disagreements from a lot of different people, including Randall Carlson, who is one of the preeminent experts, I guess, at this point on this these cataclysmic theories. But it's possible that it could be associated with a different event than the one he's thinking of. Let's stick to the UFO thing here a little bit. This has already gone on and on. I'm not going to edit this. I'm going to clean up the audio, but this is it. You're seeing the full unedited thing here. It's me, my thought process. I did a little bit of work on this beforehand. This is drawing from years of knowledge and experience, connecting different dots. Okay, no pun intended. But there's this another eye. Somebody get me UFO stories from Mauritania, please. So we zoom out. I'm looking at some more of these shapes here, You have the MidAtlantic Bridge. Also in this rendition has some of these jagged features, right? Some of these. Now, I'm not saying that that's not correct. I'm just saying there's some of these areas that are seem to be very natural and kind of curvaceous, and some of these just seem to be very structured seeming and like straight. Now, some of you like, what are you getting at? Like, who could possibly do that? What's involved here? Maybe nothing. No one. Maybe this is what we're talking about. Maybe we're looking at physical features that are showing us the crystal habit of our planet, like things that people have poked at and tried to map and drawn theories of and had spiritualities about for a long, long, long time. Ley lines and these kinds of things. Maybe that's what. Now that we have the ability to map the floor of the oceans and stuff like that, maybe we're actually seeing some of these things laid out in a way that it's very apparent, because this is like kind of like the surface of the moon or the surface of Mars. This is a surface that bears, mostly unaltered, bears the activities that have happened to it. Here's another really weird thing. Here's some perfect rays here. And it's just weird that this particular set of rays seems to, and this is some like Jesus on toast stuff here. But these just so happen to coincide with the part of the eastern seaboard that encompasses the Chesapeake north through Washington, D.C., all the way up to Massachusetts, and basically everywhere that you could consider significant to the American Revolution, the government of the United States, the commerce centers of the United States, and they just so happen to point to an island called Guadalupe, a different Guadalupe. Now, I have to look up the meaning of the word Guadalupe and what's the etymology of that. All right, but you have some more of these. These seem to be converging on. Some of these seem to be converging on Bermuda. It could be volcanic things there, but it's just very, very freaking weird. Yeah. So, am I completely nuts? Have I lost it? Going off the deep end, no pun intended. But, guys, come on now. This is weird, right? Forgetting these straight, perfectly straight, freakish lines that look like giant Nazca lines on the bottom of the ocean floor, do consider this theory about lenticular landforms and geomagnetism and UFOs and other high strangeness, as well as the fact that some of these line up very close. Oh yeah, I wanted to look at Sedona. Sedona is the last one. I swear this is almost done. Sedona is another well-known hotspot, and it doesn't exactly have this going on, but it's a little bit of an eye thing happening here. You have another eye-shaped valley. Here we go. This ridge looks very much like an eye node on it. And again, scab landing. Again, just this gigantic slosh of water deposits on the mountains around from seemingly like huge waves, huge floods, and massive lenticular valleys that seem to possibly refract and reflect electromagnetic radiation from space and the Earth and combine them in possibly aerial points that move, change on their own, and interact with the environment, the people, with our minds, with space itself, and possibly with some friends from out of town. So if, you're not a little bit amazed and a little bit intrigued, then you might just be dead from the neck down. Or up. And keep your eyes open, everybody. Right? Like I said, keep your potato eyes peeled on the sky and the land. All right. Good night.